this is Greg Angel from Heritage of Rebellion, and in this video I'm going to be breaking down how I wrote the lyrics to Introspection from the Growth and the Decay EP. It'll be similar to the last video. I'm going to be talking about the context of where I was as an artist, the demo version, and then how I wrote the final release version. So I'll throw some timestamps up for that. So without further ado, let's get into this. So where I was as a vocalist at the time, I was a beginner, as I still am. I can false chord scream, but I can't pitch the screams, so for that reason I view vocals purely rhythmically. Besides that, the only constraint that I had really was that the theme was beginnings. Again, I was writing for r/long a week, and that was the theme for the week. And I already written the music, because I like to write music first and then write lyrics that match the music, just because it's easier for me to do that. So some basic songwriting elements that I have here are verses, choruses, and bridges. So a verse is typically used for zooming in on something, like some details of the song, and exploring that situation. And then the chorus is used to zoom out, talk about the bigger picture, the song, the main idea of the song is. And then bridges are used as like a transition from one part of the song to the next. So for this song, I chose a very simple structure, going into the demo version, that is. And part of that is because I want to really focus on my songwriting chops. I didn't see a point in trying to write something super progressive if I wasn't really that good as a writer yet, so I just wanted to improve my storytelling ability, and that's why I chose a really simple form for this song, which is verse, chorus, verse, bridge, verse. I would recommend doing that, especially if you're a new songwriter, just writing songs with simple structures, and then from there you can move on to write more complex songs, even rewriting what you've already written to make it more complex. The first section I wanted to write for was the verse. I try to write in chronological order. That's just a me thing. You can do that if you want. You can go wherever you feel you should go. Start with the chorus if you want, but in this case I started with the verse. So verse 1, first thing I did was listen to it and figure out a vocal pattern. For this song, there's a lot of syncopation in the guitar riff. I wanted something that was more like straight on the downbeats, just to contrast with the syncopation in the riff. If everything's syncopated, then nothing's syncopated. So I wanted to really have that contrast there of like, this is the downbeat, this is the upbeat. So for this vocal pattern, I was listening to a lot of Bloodbath, specifically Cancer of the Soul from Nightmares Made Flesh, and I actually just lifted the vocal pattern from that, which is something you can do. Like, it's not illegal to steal vocal patterns. So I just stole like the first half or 3/4 of that vocal pattern and applied that. So once I established the vocal pattern that I was going with, I started to just free write about the ideas that I had. I like to kind of see a movie in my head, essentially, kind of like a music video. So the picture that I envisioned for this was me seeing myself image transform. So like the setting would be, I don't know why I'm trying to adjust glasses that aren't there. So the setting was just me looking in the mirror in my bathroom, and in the mirror I'm seeing a reflection of me, but it's my self-image, like the old me transforming into the new me. These are the lyrics for the first verse here, and basically what I'm doing is I was imagining seeing the transformation take place, and that's just me describing it, like what I'm seeing. Yeah, I just basically free wrote, and then step 3 would be, after you've finished free writing for that, you just go back and edit. You just make things fit the vocal pattern, change some syllables around, change some words up that you aren't satisfied with. And that's why I ended up with this verse. So, like I mentioned in this verse, it's me witnessing this transformation in the present moment. So for the chorus, I didn't really have a vocal pattern established. I didn't really have any good ideas. I think it's partially because I was not inspired by the riff being boring. So I just decided to free write for this. So instead I kind of inverted the process. I free wrote first, and then I just kind of moved things around to fit some sort of vocal pattern, and then I moved on to editing. So the way that I did this was, after I'd done all my free writing for what I wanted the section to be about, I kind of listened to the instrumental side of it, and then like just kind of whispered vocal patterns to myself, and then just made things fit and moved the syllables around. So if you look at the lyrics here, like I mentioned before, choruses are for zooming out, getting the main idea. So for this, as you can see, the lyrics are presenting the main idea, and in the setting of what I was visualizing. This is like my internal dialogue, me asking the questions to myself. So I mentioned free writing, and that's what I use to help me just get through the writing process. Because what I have found is writing is editing. Any good writing instructor will tell you that writing is editing. So you can't really just write something and it's going to be perfect the first time. You're going to have to write a rough draft and then go back, refine it, go back again, refine it. It's just like a cyclical process until you get to something that you're satisfied with. So what I did here was just that. I just free wrote and then went back and I'm editing. That's how all writing works, whether it's songwriting for lyrics, the music side even, I'd say. If you're writing literature, just anything. Something specific to Song a Week is that I try to get through the writing process like as fast as I can, just to make sure I get everything done, and then I can go back and edit things. And what's nice about it is that because I only have a week, I'm forced to make decisions, so it kind of forces me into that process, which is good because otherwise I'd be afraid to make any moves and like, oh, well, I'm not sure about this part, and I'd get stuck on things, but that helped me just get past that and just start moving through the process, keeping the ball rolling. All right, now to this second verse here, we've got me kind of zooming back in and talking a little bit about like the past me that I'm seeing here. This is one of the weaker sections, I would say. So in this section, I'm describing how the weaker me was failing. Something that is a no-no that I did here is the second half of this is I'm bringing up a new idea, talking about like technology, the negative sides of technology on humanity. So that's something I actually change in the final version because it's not good practice to bring up multiple ideas to a song. Typically, if a song is about one thing, just go all in on that one thing and don't try to bring in a bunch of other stuff. Otherwise, it just gets confused and it's a mess and it's hard to write coherently. So that is a mistake that I make here. Instead of expanding on the main idea, I'm just bringing something else in, even though I haven't fully developed the first idea. I would say that's the main thing we can learn from this section here. All right, then after that verse, we have the instrumental bridge. I thought that the bridge, that riff sounds kind of uplifting, so I thought it fit for representing the transformation that I go through in this. So that's why there's no lyrics to it. Because I tried to go back and write lyrics, but I was like, no, it just sounds better instrumentally. That's something I like about writing music first, is that I can let the music guide me while I'm writing lyrics. All right, now on to the last verse here, kind of ending on a positive note. It's me looking towards the future, and when I can see my future self in the mirror, and yeah, talking about the positive trajectory that I'm on, and seeing that I'm going to be doing great things in the future. Something easier about the verses after the first is that the vocal pattern's already established, so that's one variable that's already taken care of for you. So to recap, the way that the story of this is structured is that in the first verse, I am talking about what I'm seeing, like from the present, and then the second verse is my internal dialogue, talking about the main idea of what the song's about. After the second verse is a bridge that represents the transformation, and the third verse is me looking to the future. Again, I want to emphasize that writing bad songs is okay, because a lot of the stuff that I did in here, a lot of it is bad, a lot of it is mistakes. It was fun to write it, and you just have to accept that you're going to write bad music as a songwriter. Like none of us, I would say very rarely do songs come out fully baked. It's just not really that common. As far as lyrics or riff writing, usually you have to go back and make changes and make changes and make changes, and that's just part of it. So don't be afraid to write bad songs, because if I didn't write bad songs first, I wouldn't have been able to improve. So when I was talking about the songwriting steps, you'll notice that I talked about vocal pattern, free writing, and then editing. I guess steps 1 and 2 are kind of interchangeable. It just depends on how I'm feeling at the moment, if I want to do one or the other. But you'll notice editing is a very important part. That's because, again, writing is editing. So you just got to accept that Whatever comes out, comes out. You can go back and change it later. It's not the end of the world. Just because you write it down doesn't mean you have to put it in the song. You can change it before you release it. It's really not that big of a deal. It's important to just get the ideas out so more fresh ideas can come into your mind. Like I mentioned in the previous video, my goal with this EP and all music that I write really is to show my transformation as a songwriter. So for that reason, going into the final version, I decided I was going to keep a similar structure. However, in between me writing the demo version and the final version, it was about 5-6 months or so. So I wrote the demo version back in January of 2022, and then I started rewriting everything like June, July of 2022. In that time, I have learned a lot more about songwriting just by reading books, listening to podcasts, things like that. I'll throw some of the resources that I used down below. So I learned how pre-choruses and post-choruses can add to the flow of energy in the song. So I decided to incorporate those. So I went from a very simple structure to a less simple, but still fairly simple structure. Like, it looks kind of complex when I lay it out like that, but it's really not. But what's important to note is that it would be hard for me to go from zero to more complex song structure than it would be for me to go from zero to very simple structure. So again, writing for the final version, I listened to everything, figured out what I didn't like, and then just started changing things one at a time. So the main thing I would say is that the lyrics are really weak. There's a couple things I wrote that I think are cool, but overall, the lyrics are pretty weak. And that's just kind of how I write. First draft is always pretty bad. The lyrics are not good in my first drafts, which is okay. That's just part of the process. Another major thing that I did not like was the present, past, future thing. Like, it worked for Star Wars, but didn't really work for this song. So I decided to rearrange everything there, just go in chronological order. Thought that made more sense. And as you will see, I think everything flows better going past, present, future. Okay, so I'm going to compare the first verse of this with the analogous first verse. So this is going to be the verse where I'm talking about the past. Basically, the main change is that I'm keeping this verse focused on the main idea of the song. So in this verse, I'm setting the stage for the rest of the song. So overall, I think my word choice is a lot better. There's certain words that I use that just evoke certain emotions. So for example, like the word misery, I didn't put like sadness, like, oh, I feel sad. Like, that's too vague. Like, misery, I think, is a lot stronger of a word, paints a better picture. Gaunt visage, that phrase there, I thought that was pretty good because it adds to that misery imagery. It like keeps it all the same, keeps it all like fairly dark. So I wanted to keep that theme going. There's also some alliteration that happens here, but I don't really want to get into like that mechanical side of things because I don't think that's as important as the storytelling. Similar to the rhyme scheme is, well, I guess they all rhyme, but not really. Like the second line, just with pronunciation, especially with like death metal vocals, you can kind of make things rhyme even when they don't. I wasn't really focused on rhyme scheme, but that's just kind of how it happened. I guess like a subconscious thing, really. So the first verse presents the past me that I have seen, and then we move into the pre-chorus, which is a new section that I had added. And this is the section that does the introspecting. So I just took the old chorus and just made that the pre-chorus here with some changes. I think the language that I use is a lot better in this version. I think like the phrase grasping for a purpose, that paints a much better picture than any of the language that I'd used prior. Because it like kind of shows, I guess, like desperation. It like evokes more emotion than the previous version of it. All right, now for the chorus, this section is from this perspective of me hearing voices of wisdom guiding me through this transformation, and I'm meditating and stepping into the metaphorical void. So the post-chorus is a continuation of that, which I thought was appropriate because post-choruses kind of keep the energy up from the chorus. So it's the voices of wisdom telling me that like the path ahead is painful, but you have to go and do this. So this expands a little bit more on the main idea of the song. On to the second verse, you'll see that I moved it was the old first verse, now is the second verse because it's talking about the present. I kept the first half of it and just made some small changes, just because I thought that was a pretty sick line. And that's where I got Grow from the Decay, title of the EP. Again, the lyrics here are stronger than in the first version. So you'll notice it's like a lot more passive language in the old version of it, and in the new version, it's a lot more active, like I'm doing things. So this transformation wouldn't happen if I didn't take action. So that's why I use more active language here than I did in the old version. So let's look at the second pre-chorus. I'll throw up the first pre-chorus as well so we can compare. I made some slight changes to the wording just to show that, again, I'm taking control of things, and it just shows to my development. So yeah, the language in this second pre-chorus is more active, like I'm taking command, as the lyrics say, just to show that I'm developing. From there we got another chorus, and then we go into post-chorus number 2. So the second post-chorus kind of echoes the first one, kind of expanding a little bit more, but it's as if I've kind of gone through some of the process, so I have like a better understanding of it. That was how I viewed this and how I approached writing it. Then from there we go into the bridge, which is the actual transformation. For the third verse, I took some of the old lyrics that I had and just made some small changes. Again, that's what the first draft is for, taking what you like, removing what you don't like. Something I like about this section is that I'm using like dark imagery, and because everything before is so dark and seems so bleak, I'm able to point it in a positive direction, and I just thought it was cool using like dark imagery to talk about something that's positive. So that wraps up this lyrical breakdown of Introspection from Grow from the Decay. In summary, I just want to emphasize that writing is editing, and it's okay to write bad lyrics or bad songs. You can go back and edit them. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave those down in the comment section below, or any constructive criticism even, because anything I can do to improve this would be greatly appreciated. And as always, I'm Greg Angel, and thank you for watching.